And thank you to all the moving companies that have been joining us today. And thank you, Gadi and Jeff. We're going to cover 4 key topics. What we try to do with these webinars is, as everyone's joining, we want people to be able to leave with 2 or 3 of those golden nuggets. You know, as we sit at your feet, basically, Jeff, we're going to be learning, you know, how is the insurance company viewing things? And basically, we want to know 4 things. How can we reduce moving insurance claims? We're going to talk probably the majority of our time in that subject today. 2, how can we minimize stress? It's already stressful enough trying to get our teams loading things onto the truck, moving them across the country or the state or wherever we're going, or halfway across the world sometimes. 3, how do we give the service that provides that 5-star score at the end of it? We want to make sure that the stuff gets from A to B and it's just as good as it was when we picked it up as we dropped it off. And finally, we want to protect the bottom line. Nothing worse than doing a job, getting my team there, getting our folks there, just to lose it all on the back end because we didn't approach, you know, or have ourselves protected. You know, today I think we're going to talk about transferring risk. So let's jump right into it, guys. I just want to almost approach this first from reducing moving claims. Like, let's say I'm a new mover. Even the other day, I talked to a young man. He started a moving company in college, just graduated from college, and he's in his first year of his moving company. You know, and this is it. He's full-time. He's approaching this. He's asking me all kinds of questions, and he's going to ask me a question like, James, why? I'm new to moving. Why do I even need to care about moving insurance? So, Gadi, why, as a new moving company, would I even need to care about insurance?
Sure. So again, thanks for having us here. You know, I would say, especially for a new company, I don't know what's the experience of the owner or the teams. You want to make sure that you're protected from all angles. Obviously, insurance, one way to protect your customers, number one, their household goods, and then your company. You need insurance because insurance is a way for you to transfer the risk, your risk, to us. Company can be a great company, the teams can be great teams, but accidents do happen. And we simply say, to prevent these accidents from costing you, use insurance, and buy moving insurance in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super helpful, transferring that risk, right? And as we think about moving insurance, I think we all think about what's sitting behind you, Jeff, like a pool table. Uh-oh, got to move that thing. It's going to be expensive. But I think sometimes we're not thinking about the sentimental things. Maybe on your wall, maybe, I don't know what that picture is to you, but maybe that's something that's a family heirloom. You know, maybe you can talk to us about how we approach it when it's something maybe sentimental. What do we do how do we do that?
So sentimental value is real difficult because, you know, customers, pictures, paintings, different items like that don't have a lot of value in the market, but have a lot of value to that customer. And you know, from an insurance standpoint, we can't put sentimental value on an item, but it's still important to, you know, seek out those items if the customer has them and make sure that they're being packed properly, handled correctly. I think one of the best things is when you go into a customer's home, starting off at the beginning and just finding out what has the most value to them. And it may not be monetary, you know, value. It may be those sentimental items, but then regardless, if that's what means the most to them, if it's, you know, grandma painted a picture of me as a baby, you want to protect those items the most, because when they do get damaged, that customer is going to, you know, be coming back saying, I specifically, you know, that's the one item I didn't want damaged and it's not replaceable. And then the insurance does have to place monetary values on that, which is usually, you know, not what the customer feels the value is for those items. For example, we had a wood elephant a couple weeks ago, and myself, I thought it was better. I found my repair firm could repair it for like $325. I found it replaceable for less. I thought it would be the better option to replace it. You know, who wants their broken item repaired, they'd rather have a new one. And that wasn't the case. Whenever I got into the claim, the customer wanted it repaired. You know, the difference was a small amount, but just kind of shows, you know, what you may think a customer wants or has value versus what they're actually place value on, and how they want that handled.
Yeah, I think that's a key takeaway, right, Jeff? Like we always think about, oh golly, I don't want to butcher that pool table behind you, but we forget to ask when we come through the door, just as what's the most valuable to them, and put ourselves in their shoes. I think that's a clear golden nugget we can take away from the webinar today. I think the next thing people want to know is, hey, what gets damaged the most and what costs the most to repair? Like these are the things, another thing we want to keep an eye on is what is my team most likely to hurt?
And the things that you see damage the most are what people have the most in their homes. I mean, you've got a sofa sitting behind you. Most people are going to have that in their house. You know, wood items are probably the number one just because there's so much. I mean, the wall unit you have behind you should also be something kind of difficult to move based on the size of it. End tables, dining tables, just those are what we see the most. And I would say it's because everybody usually has those in their home. As far as what we see cost the most, isn't always what's damaged the most, but if you damage a piano, you're going to have usually a very high repair cost. The finishes on them are difficult to repair. Some firms can't even handle them. So finding a company that can do that repair, and then just the size of it. If it has to come out of the home, it has to come back. They just add up really quick. And probably the next things are mattresses, just because if they get torn, if they get stained, a lot of times, you know, we can't repair it. If the stains don't come out, customers not going to want to accept that. So those items end up being full cost to replace them.
Okay, that's super helpful.
Yeah, and TVs, I would say you could probably throw in there too, just when you get them damaged. Used to see TV repair firms 20 years ago all over the place, and nowadays you don't see a TV repair firm because we're a disposable society and we dispose of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the claims happen, right? The TV gets dropped, we accidentally stain that mattress. We don't want to see it. So how do you recommend? I mean, you're on the other side, right? When we drop the TV and the TV busts, you know, we're coming to the insurance company. We're like, Jeff, how do we approach that? Like, as far as like having a framework, how do I document a move in a way that you would want to see this, that would also protect us as a moving company? Like, can you talk us through kind of that approach to documentation?
So you could have multiple ways of documentation, either through handwritten inventories. Some movers are moving into digital inventories. I mean, from a claim standpoint, it doesn't make a difference to me how you inventory it, just that it's inventoried. Most times the inventories are blank. Sometimes they don't even describe the items that well. So what I'm looking for, you know, it's not every single little nick, scratch on an item, but, you know, if the sofa has a tear in it, that's noted. If you know, there's a corner broke off something on glass, you know, noting that. There's no way to tell. I mean, if it's wood, you can tell the difference usually if it's old damage versus new damage. So when it's not noted, a repair firm can many times tell us, like, this has been exposed, there's dirt in here. But like with glass, marble, things like that, a lot of times you can't tell if it's old or new. So noting that stuff up front is important. And when customers move, I mean, we look at our furniture every day, so we start to not necessarily notice those little nicks and scratches that happen on day-to-day basis. Maybe you had your stuff in a basement or in a dark room or something, and now you've moved it to where there's lots of lighting, and now those damages are noticeable, and the customer starts to see them, and maybe not trying to be, you know, take advantage of someone, but just they didn't realize they were there before. And if someone's noted that through the inventory, or even better through photos or something, then, you know, we can go back and, you know, show that to the customer that this was pre-existing, and, you know, keep a moving company or from paying out on those items.
So what's the difference of, oh, Gadi, go ahead, please.
Quick, Jeff mentioned photos. Obviously photos, videos, kind of like the app you have. I mean, you can't dispute it, right? So when you show somebody, hey, look what we see here, when the movers just got in, they took the picture or took a video of it, you can't argue that. So that's the important point.
Yeah, I was going to ask the difference between maybe someone who files a claim with no notes. As you said, some people come to you blank. Some people come to you with written notes. Some people come to you with digital notes. Some people come to you with digital and photos, and some come with digital, photo, video. If I have nothing or just handwritten, and I'm the moving company, I'm coming to you as the adjuster, how are we working together? Like, what are you looking at, and when do you know to, okay, we're going to take care of that? Or when you're like, I can't do anything with that. Like, we can't accept that. Like, how do I get myself ready to work with you, Jeff? And how do you?
So, I mean, if there's nothing on that inventory, it's going to leave us open to a claim. And customers will definitely use that. You know, the movers inventoried all my stuff. They didn't note any damages. So that would mean that everything was in perfect shape when it left the house. We know that's not true, but that's what they'll try to stand on. And the inventory, if you know, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
If I may interject here for a second, so one of the things that we provide, talking about preventing, claims, is a whole training to the moving company, and inventory is part of that training. We actually have a manual that any company that is associated with us or affiliated with us, as we call it, will receive. We'll go through this with them, and we'll train them on how to actually go through that inventory. That's one of the items that we'll highlight through that training.
Yeah, and then part of it is, like you said, Jeff, you get on site, what are the most expensive things? Also, what is the most valuable items to you? Two, taking that first bit of time when you're on site to do the proper documentation. Yes, it's going to take that extra time. How you charge for the customer, how you approach it is going to be what you're going to need to do at due diligence. Again, you see no notes and nothing, and you come to Jeff, you're going to be in a bad way. But if you're making sure to train that team, as Gadi's talking about, when they first come on site, to take those videos, to take those pictures, to write down the documentation of what they see before they touch anything, that is the difference between a bottom line that gets crushed or a bottom line that's protected. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and sometimes when it's not noted as well, we can tell it's pre-existing damage, when we see the photos. But without that documentation, if it was on the inventory, I could go out right there and tell the customer, look, mover noted that the top left corner was broken off of your desk. We can't cover this. However, if it's not, many times I have to send someone out so that I can get a third-party opinion saying this damage isn't new, because myself saying it is going to look self-serving. The customer is going to feel that I'm just denying their claim not to pay out on something, rather than once I have that third party, they're the experts. And we get asked about that many times, oh, they're just on your side, which is not true. Repair firms make their money off repairing items. They don't make their money off of telling us that that's not new damage. So it would really be in the repair firm's better interest to say that the damage, is new, and to go ahead and have it repaired. The other thing is, we're putting those repair firms in a situation. They ask us for the inventories as well. And many times we have to tell them either, sometimes it's we don't have any, especially on local moves, things like that. I think it's important when you're doing that, you don't have the inventory. Still important to protect yourself. If you see something, note it somewhere, have your crew take a picture of it, something to protect yourself. Because when they ask us, then it's, we don't have it, or, well, we'd send you the inventory, but it's blank. I can tell you there's a sofa on there, but every item shows there's no damage. I think it's important too, just in box sizes and stuff, rather than just listing a box. I know many times it's not listed what's in it, but at least if we have size of boxes, what type of box. I mean, when the customer is trying to say, for example, the other day, customer said they were missing a box, but the item that didn't check off was a folding table. So if it's just a box, if we know the size of it, we have a better idea. Like, well, it couldn't have had this in it because it's a book box or it's a mirror carton, and they're saying that, you know, there was dishes in it.
Yeah, that's super helpful.
Documentation is key. No, like I said, documentation is key, obviously.
Yeah, documentation. So talking with the customer, doing your proper documentation, and the next part of preparation is when we do the initial walkthrough, we see the pool table, we see a marble statue, we see the TV. Sometimes it's appropriate when we talk about how do we pack things, how do we load things, sometimes it's appropriate not to do it, meaning let's get a third party involved. And can you make a recommendation, Jeff, of when should we get a third party to pack something and tell our team, hey, we're not touching that. Like, we need to get a third party involved. How do we do that?
From the insurance, we require items over 5,000 to be crated. If they're, you know, marble tops, glass tops, delicate, fragile items. And then if it gets over 10,000, we require a third party crated. And we're doing somewhat the same thing. We're transferring risk when we do that, because a third party, they will take on the liability if they crate a shipment, an item wrong. Now, if the mover turns it upside down, they drop the crate, they break shock watches on them, you know, then it's our liability. We're taking the responsibility for the moving company, our affiliate, damaging the item. But let's say they didn't properly secure the item inside the crate, and then it gets to the other end, they open up, crate's fine, but inside this item's been bouncing around. That's going to go back to that third party. So, you know, for a mover can be important, and maybe even a lower amount. We say 5 and 10, but when we were talking about items that we pay out the most on, when it comes to dining tables, most of those high costs are usually because of marble and glass tops. And a lot of times they fall under the 5,000. So we're not requiring them to be crated, but because of their delicate nature and that, maybe they should still be crated. So I wouldn't say that a dollar amount necessarily all the time is the best way to go about it. And I know, you know, some customers, they don't want to pay for it, you know, trying to be competitive with other movers and that. But, you know, you take on a move and then you break a $10,000 table that you didn't crate. It's not a very profitable move at that point. And most of the times I would say if a customer has the money to be able to buy $10,000, $12,000 tables, they probably should be able to afford crating them. And if you look at a lot of these companies, you know, when they're shipping these items, if you look at the way the manufacturer shipped the item, they're crating, they're putting foam around, they're doing those things because they ship these every day and they don't want the damage to them. So if you can follow that type of, you know, process, even sometimes we'll take when we get the high dollar items and we'll call the company and ask them, how do you guys move this? Do you crate it? Does anything need to come apart? How should it come apart? Some of the companies even have where they will send someone out to disassemble and reassemble. You know, not every item, but just those higher dollar, out of the ordinary type stuff.
And if I'm a mover who's like, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying, Jeff. Wow, okay. Like sometimes we just move the expensive stuff because the customer doesn't want to pay, as you said, like, hey, if they can afford a pool table. But sometimes we're dealing with customers that are basically just wanting to find the way to keep their spend down. But, you know, now that we're approaching this and talking about this, and I'm like, okay, I need to really get a hold of this. I need to understand third-party packers, or just understanding how to protect myself more. Gadi, do you guys have some kind of manual or something that I can learn from? Like, you guys have been doing this for a couple decades. Is there something I can come to you guys for as a moving company to get equipped?
So the manual, you're talking about the packing crating manual?
Yeah.
So as I mentioned before, we do have that. When you become an affiliate with us, that's one of the items that we'll provide you. We'll go through pretty much every item that you possibly could move or a customer could own and explain how it needs to be packed, crated, from the insurance aspect of it, but also just from a standard move procedure. And we know that some companies have their own procedures, and to a degree, we're willing to work with that but we need to be aware and notified. But that type of manual is available for moving companies.
Okay, so anyone joining us today could reach out to you guys and say, hey, I'm really interested in that manual that Gadi said. So, okay. So anyone interested in that manual, please let us know and we'll make sure to get that to you. That's super helpful. Anything else you want to add, Jeff, on this topic before we switch gears?
The other thing I was going to say is just that the third parties, I've denied a lot of claims where they have created, and it's because of the photos they take. When they're creating those items that are of that value, probably any item, their crews come out, they take pictures of all sides of it. They take notes on it. We had a customer that moved multiple sculptures and statues one time. They were wood pieces. When it got to the other end, they were claiming that they were cracked, they were broke. The third party had pictures of every single damaged item before the move. Everything that was being claimed was not legitimate, was all pre-existing. And we were able to, deny all of that. We had another one where they were actually making repairs to the item as it was being created. And the third party took photos of all of that and had it all noted, which protected us from taking on liability of damage we weren't responsible for. I mean, it works the other way too when you're doing those type of inventories and stuff. I mean, I think if it's done correctly, it protects the customer as well, so that we don't deny a claim that, is new damage.
If I may add something, James, you actually started the conversation by kind of saying that what do I do if I'm a new owner to a new moving company, et cetera. And I don't know the makeup of the companies here, but new companies or more experienced companies, in some cases, you're movers. I used to own a moving company. I know it from first hand. You may not necessarily have the best crew. You may not necessarily know how to deal with a baby grand piano or a concert piano. It's okay, in our view, to tell the customer, look, we are moving you, but then for that piano, whatever that item is, we have a third-party expert who will take care of it. And yes, there's a cost to it. It's understandable in any other type of business. It should be understandable also in the moving business.
And you can use that as a leverage point if you're competing, right? You're like, hey, if a moving company isn't bringing this up around this grand piano, I would be nervous,
Right.
Like we want to be transparent, let you know, best movers for the job. And in this case, it's a creating company for the grand piano. My team can take care of the rest. We're not going to take care of that.
Right.
And I would just say last, if you are having to move something, you don't want to lose the move. The customer's refusing to get an item created. You're concerned with it. I would get some type of release signed, that we're going to move this for you. We don't feel that it's being packed properly, or you declined to have the crating and that, and that you aren't going to be held, liable or responsible if that item is damaged. That's
a good tip too. Yeah, that's a good point. So a lot of things that can be done, in preparation of the move to watch our bottom lines. That was a big part of it. We're going to switch gears to the next topic, which is minimizing stress. Training reduces stress. We know that, but how you handle training, properly getting folks up, loading procedures can help that. But also, sometimes when you're thinking about it, like, man, insurance companies, and no, you guys, like, hey, I'm grateful to have you guys, but sometimes we think insurance, we're like, oh my goodness, I got to pay insurance companies monthly, or I've got this claims thing, or are they going to deny my customer? Is it going to come back to me? We get stressed, like something happens, stuff happens. We all know that. So what does it mean to have a company like yours by my side as a moving company? Am I adversary? Am I a team with you? Or like, maybe you can walk me through a little bit of my view as a moving company when I start to work and which insurance company I should do business with.
Sure, I'll jump in. I mean, in essence, we're going into a partnership here, right? Because we want you, we need you to work with us, and vice versa. We will relieve stress, number one, by providing a necessary service and a product to your customer, an insurance coverage that will protect the household goods. And then, God forbid, there's a claim. On the flip side of it, we will then handle the claim, we will then take care of the claim, and we will pay the claim. And all that comes off of your hands. Imagine if you needed to take care of claims, and I'm sure some companies do with evaluation. That means somebody has to accept the calls or the email that comes from a customer, except they need to deal with that. They need to go back and forth with whatever needs to be done to look into that claim, and then you need to pay it. If you can pay it out of pocket, fine. Obviously, it's an expense to you. Sometimes the claims are large claims. You may need to send it to your insurance company, and then there's a cost to it by virtue of raising rates, et cetera, et cetera. So we're supporting you throughout the whole process. And again, we're available for training your sales team, your customer service team, how to explain to the customer about the insurance. We'll train you in the packing, crating, and how the shipment needs to be handled. And of course, we take care of all the aftermath, right, in case of a claim and a claim payment that needs to be made.
Do you have any thoughts around this as well, Jeff? Anything to add?
Yeah, so I'd say that, you know, to minimize stress, having us handle the claim, so you can focus on moving customers instead of dealing with the customer's claim. I would also say, you know, if it's being offered at 60 cents a pound, a lot of customers choose this, maybe not knowingly, or at the time, you know, we've all heard the comments of, oh, I didn't know there was going to be that much damage, or they didn't understand it, you know. So, you know, you damage that customer's TV and it's 60 pounds and they're getting $36 for their 60-inch TV versus, you know, if they have an insurance policy, they're going to get a full replacement cost for that item. And I think that makes a big difference in minimizing stress for the mover and for the customer both.
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently in the middle of this myself. I literally went to the gas station with my van. I had my son in there. I'm getting gas for the mower, and I'm outside of my van, and I watched this Amazon truck slowly backing up. And finally, I realized this guy's going to hit my van. I literally hit the side of the van. I was like, stop. He didn't hear me. Wham, with my son in there, and hit the back of the van. The guy hops out, second day on the job, didn't know what it's doing. Now, there was other Amazon vans there gassing up. They're like, we need the owner. The owner came over. He was fabulous. You know, he's like, here's my insurance. Here's everything. They'll take care of you. Don't worry. Even the officer had come over. He's like, this happens all the time. Don't worry. That guy's great. Insurance company. And that insurance company has been dealing with me and my van and the repair company. And that owner, I mean, he gave me his number, hasn't done a thing. He's gone about it, and they're still probably backing vans into the back of trucks, whatever. He's like, don't worry, man. I've had a guy back into a house before. I was like, my goodness. But he hasn't had to think about it. His guys are still going. His guys back on the road, and they're off and running. So everything you guys are saying reminded me of just if I don't have insurance, guess what? As an owner, guess who's dealing with it?
Yeah, it's like in any other business, James. You want to stay focused on what you're special with, right? So we're movers, special, you know, just keep your specialty to moving and give everything else to somebody else who can handle it. In case of insurance or covering the shipments, obviously give it to an insurance agency or company like us.
Absolutely. And when these things happen, and they will, you know, we want to guard those 5-star reviews. Can you still get a 5-star review and have a claim? That's the question. Like, if I have this as my 5-star review going to a 1, how do I make sure I still get a 5-star, right? This is our next bullet. You know, why would insurance help me still get 5-star claims? You know, maybe we can talk a little about that. Go ahead.
I can go in general, just to give you a specific. I mean, in general, a claim doesn't necessarily mean, you know, bad or 1 or 2 stars. It's how you handle it, and customers understand that, and customers appreciate that. Jeff can give you many examples where, you know, we started with a claim, the customer was really, really upset, and then at the end of it, we paid, and the customer sends us, you know, glorious emails and letters of recommendation. But Jeff can go into some details maybe.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, even that with the 5-star reviews, I see, you know, damages happen. What is it? 12% of moves.
12% of moves end up with a claim filed.
With a claim on them, and
this is by the way, this is in our network. In general, in the moving industry, about 25%. Just to go to show you, with our management of it, we can reduce it by half. Just that. Sorry, Jeff.
No, that's fine. And What I see the biggest issues usually, if there's just, like Gadi was saying, a lack of response is usually where it starts to drop off. It's not that something got damaged, it's that somebody is going to take care of it once there is damage. I used to say that I could tell the difference between the good company and the bad company by what happens after the move is done. You know, are they going to still pick up the phone when you have damage? Are they going to take care of that? You know, or does the company disappear? And that can just be with anything, not just moving. But you know, if you're buying a service and you can't reach the company, I mean, I know myself, if I even start out and I have trouble reaching a company, I just quit. If it's that hard for me to give my business to you, then I'm sure not going to do business with you. And having the moving insurance, whenever that customer, instead of getting that $36 or you know, that 60 cents on a pound, and their items getting fully replaced, you know, even I know they paid the insurance and that, but it just leaves them with a better feeling than when they see their item, you know, they're getting pennies on the dollar for it.
Yeah,
So I think we started with saying, you know, insurance, really the essence of insurance is transfers the risk to us. And I'm suggesting also transfer the stress, transfer the workload of claims, transfer the hassle to us. We know how to do this. We do it very well. Or to any, if you work with any other insurance agency, same thing. We're the experts in this. Let us do what we know to do best.
And you guys don't accept everybody, right? Like what are you guys looking for when you accept the company and when you don't accept the company? Like what would cause you guys not to accept the company?
So we have a certain criteria that we go by. Time in business is one. We're looking for companies for at least 1 year in business. We're looking at loss experience. What's their loss experience in the previous 3 years? Obviously licensed. They need to be licensed, whether it's a local intrastate license or the interstate US DOT. We look at social reviews. It does tell us something. It's not the best or main parameter. We look at, you know, ownership. Who owns the company? What have they done? If they've done in the past, do they have any other experience in previous years? We put all of that together. I may be missing one item, Jeff, but I think for the most part, that's really what it is. And we look at their insurance. Once they are certified, we do need to make sure that they have the proper insurance, their cargo, warehouse legal, general liability in place, and then they can become an affiliate company with us.
And that's a big deal for a company, right? I mean, it might not feel like it, but once you have that connection, once you've accepted us as a moving company, we can go to the customer and say, hey, look, we're fully insured. Here's what happens when a claim happens. Here's why we're doing all this documentation. Here's why we're recommending this. And it's showing us that, look, we can handle anything you're throwing at us. You know, my guys, God forbid, get in an accident on the way, you know, it's taken care of. You know, we're selling trust as well as the ability to move things from A to B and do it in the right way and to have the protection behind us. So I think everything you guys have been sharing has been really helpful, even to preserve that 5-star rating when the bad thing happens, because like you said, 25% happens. That's crazy. Like next thing we're talking about is protecting the business. If I know 25% of my moves are going to have a claim and end with a claim, you know, how am I guess I'm almost like I've got to do this to protect my bottom line, right? Like, why wouldn't I do this? You know,
right.
What do you think?
And also a question that comes up is, well, how do we know to us, right? Companies will ask, how do we know that you handle the claim right? How do we know that you do it correctly, etc.? So to let you know, obviously we're a licensed insurance agency, right? So we have a responsibility towards the insurance department of every state. We're licensed in all states in the US. So number one. Number two, we have a responsibility to our insurance carrier, because our insurance carrier would not keep doing business with us if we didn't perform right. And by law and regulation, we need to settle claims within a certain amount of time, settle and pay within a certain amount of time. So put all that together and you bet you that we're going to do our best to do whatever the regulation is, or even better.
That's great. Yeah, 20 years you guys been around, and you've been in this 35, and Jeff, you've been seeing claims, you know, for quite a long time. Any other thing before we hop into Q&A, Jeff, that you want to share with the moving companies, like what they should be thinking about when it comes to this?
I don't have anything else at the moment. Was just back to that on being, responsive as far as 5 stars and stuff, and kind of taking the stress off of you or a mover. So we watch how fast we do respond to customers, and so when we receive a claim, we're responding to the customer in the same day. Less than 12 hours, we've responded to the customer. We've sent them a claim form. We've reached out to them. They know who their adjuster is. They have a phone number that's direct. It's not an 800 number. It's not a voicemail. It comes to that adjuster. That's who they get to speak with. We return all the phone calls the same day. So we don't go home. Somebody's not going to be wondering over the weekend or that night what's going on. Even if, and just for anyone, even if it's just, I don't know yet. The fact that you reached out to them, even when I don't pick up the phone, when I call someone back an hour or two later, they're like, wow, that was really quick. It's just the communication and constant, updates, talking to them, and being that I'm not have to worry about the move that's happening tomorrow or the day after. All I handle are the claims that are coming in. I can put all my focus into those customers. So, I mean, we average somewhere around 6 days once we receive their claim until we have issued a settlement to the customer. So the turnaround is extremely fast, and responses are prompt. And I would just say for 5-star reviews, the same thing. Probably the thing I hear the most from customers, when it comes to moving companies is that, they don't know where their shipment is. They don't know when it's going to deliver. And I've been there. I've been in dispatch. I've planned trucks. I know sometimes you've got everyone planned out. You don't know when it's going to load. It's sitting in the warehouse. But when you start not keeping communication, then as delivery comes, that customer starts looking through stuff. They're watching things closer. If you do damage something, point it out to the customer, because if you don't and they find it, now they're going through everything with a fine-tooth comb because, well, they didn't tell me about this, so what else did they not tell me about? And then it may end up being stuff that you really didn't damage. Maybe somebody didn't note the damage to it, and now you're paying on claims, for every little thing. Then I think that a lot of times if all that's done, there's something minor, a lot of customers will, move on from it.
Yeah, so we should really, go ahead, Gadi. Yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Real example here. I don't know how many of the participants here from the Northeast was raining the past few days, record rain. And what we're doing is we're doing a campaign where we're calling, we have what we call storage extensions or shipments who stay in storage more than the standard SIT, storage in transit. And we're approaching all the movers, asking them about these shipments that they have that are in storage, because it's better if we find now that the shipment was damaged from a flood or rain than 6 months later when the shipment may be completely damaged, mold and mildew all over the place, and a very upset customer. So that's one example why you want to, again, shift the risk to someone else, like an insurance agency like us.
Yeah, I think it's really well said. And Jackie, I'm going to have you join us again for the Q&A. But I think, what I'm hearing from you guys is we should be viewing, you guys as a partner, right? You guys are proactively reaching out. You have time frames you need to handle the claim, time to get back, a direct number, and we can use that as a point of leverage with our customers. Look, we have insurance on our side, and here's what they do. Here's how they go about it, and they're proactive. And so really viewing this as more of a partnership than just, hey, another bill I got to pay. As a moving company, I got to have insurance, but it really should be looked at in a different way and leveraged when we're selling to customers and we're delivering for customers as well.
The beauty of it also, James, if I may plug in, number one, the customers, the shippers, as we call them, pay the insurance. So it's not the moving company necessarily or at all. And the other thing, with our programs, an insurance company can benefit financially from the program. So that's just on the side.
That's super helpful. And Jackie, you rejoined us, and
Yeah.
do you have any questions? I know we've got a lot of folks joining us today. What kind of questions do we have?
Absolutely. And if anybody wants to ask an additional question, feel free to input it now. If we don't get to it today, we'll be sure to follow up with you afterward. Actually, the first question we got was from somebody who just said they missed the very beginning and wanted to know what company Gadi and Jeff were from. So I let them know Relocation Insurance Group, but you mentioned something at the very end that I think might be helpful for them to know a little bit more about. How do you work with moving companies versus shippers?
So I don't understand the question. Ask me again.
Oh, so you had said a lot of the cost is directly for the shipper and not for the moving company. Could you just clarify that point?
Sure. So for the most part, consumers or shippers, as we call them, the moving company's customers, are those who are buying and paying for the insurance. So it's not a cost to the moving company. You know, there are some programs, international, so what, that it's the truth, it's the case, but in most cases, the customer is paying for it. And the customer will be the one that we actually compensate in case of a claim. But the moving company, by virtue of the partnership with us, the referral, etc., can benefit from that. I want to say Relocation Insurance to the name of the company. I started the business as Moving Insurance LLC. Movinginsurance.com is one of our websites. Some people don't know that connection. So really, same company, Relocation Insurance and Moving Insurance.
Wonderful, thank you. Another person said, please give us that packing manual. Do you have any additional tips that are in the manual that you wanted to share today, or would you rather save that for another time?
It's a 40-some page manual. It's going to be a long webinar if we give you all the tips. But I think Jeff mentioned before, the high value items, how to deal with them, what to do in case of PBOs, inventory, etc. It's all over the place. Reach out to us, we'll provide you that manual.
And not just that, but when I was mentioning about the items that are damaged the most, we can take on each one of our movers, run a report that tells us which items are damaged, the average cost that are paying out, how many times those have been claimed. That's how I'm not guessing at what, even though I have a good idea handling the claims, but I'm not guessing at what gets damaged most and what's most expensive. I'm taking claims information from our system, and like I'm looking at a company right now, and in the last year had 12 dining tables. Total amount paid out was $15,500, so average cost ended up being $1,300. A mover should be able to take that information, match it up to the claims, see which crews they have that are causing those damages, and narrow it down. You know, is it a crew that's causing the damage? Is it that we're the same item over and over? And then go into those guys, you know, who isn't damaging them, which crews aren't, have them train those other guys. And if it's specific items, it's not that they need to be trained on every single item, but maybe they're just not packing this item as well as the other crew is, and, you know, have a tip to it. I mean, a lot of times with the chairs, with the sofas, things like that, where we see it's the bottom edges, you know, the blanket isn't getting wrapped far enough around the bottom of the piece, and those things, those legs, the ruffle around the sofa, you know, fold it up, then shrink wrap it. If you shrink wrap it with it down, you know, and too tight, it ends up getting wrinkled and, you know, stained, things like that. And now you've got a claim for that, like, I guess you call it dust ruffle, something to that effect.
Right, that's great insight. So 2 more questions, and then I know we wanted to save a few minutes at the end. This one's a little detailed. It says, thoughts on going above and beyond. We always go above and beyond because our damages are infrequent, but we just did a $1,400 job and broke a $1,000 TV. I want to do right and protect reputation, but we don't owe them any more than $60 tops. What are your thoughts and recommendations?
I guess the assumption, and I'll let Jeff talk from a claims perspective, that the customer did not purchase any valuation or insurance. So customer went with the basic legal liability, 60 cents or whatever it is in the States, if it's a local move. That's one of the cases when the customer really should have purchased coverage, whether it's the valuation or the insurance. That's the best example. I'll let Jeff say from a claims perspective.
So many times to protect your reputation, you might have to pay for something that you're not, well, you're liable for, but only at the 60 cents per pound. But rather than having that bad review, rather than that negative comments, The alternative, if that customer had an insurance policy, you wouldn't be paying that out, and they would be collecting from the insurance for that damaged TV. So, you know, that would be where it's good for the insurance, you know, if the customer has that, and for the mover not having to deal with that. But, you know, we have the same things happen where we require items over $1,000 to be listed, or we require that you insure your items for their replacement cost, and customers don't, and we're not liable for that full amount either. If you didn't tell us that you've got a $5,000 marble table, you know, we couldn't tell you it needed crated, now it's damaged, you know, we're going to deny it. But for reputation, legal stuff, sometimes we still end up paying on those as well. And you just got to look at each situation and the amount, and, you know, what it's worth to your company, you know, versus having that negative review.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. That was a specific question, but I'm sure a lot of the folks on the line had a similar one. So I saved this one for last because it's about LiveSwitch, and I know James wanted to give a little bit more information about what we do to anyone wanted to stay. But this person said, our company is using LiveSwitch videos to reduce claims. I thought it was mostly for just doing estimates. Let me hand it over to you now, James. I'm going to make you presenter, since you might be able to answer their question a little bit more specifically. Let me just do that right here.
Yeah, you pass it over. It'll take a couple seconds for putting me in control, but I can take that, and I'll have Gadi and Jeff, as we do this, explain why this is be helpful as Jeff sit in the chair of handling claims. So let me share my screen. Everybody should be able to see that now. And so what we're going to talk about here, so it's, yes, predominantly a lot of folks are using LiveSwitch to do their estimates, right? So they'll send a text, they'll do the remote estimate, and we're getting videos and pictures along the way, which can help with documentation because it's dated, right? But in addition, our moving companies are using this, like Jeff said, as their documentation tool, or a part of their documentation process. When they come on site and they ask, hey, what are the most valuable items and what is most valuable to you? Now it's time, as Jeff said, you know, instead of him getting nothing and just getting digital or written notes, like now let's take some pictures, let's take some videos. So what we're looking at here is the LiveSwitch platform, and what you can do with this platform are a couple of things. So the first way, and I'm just going to text myself just to show everyone for speed, is you can text any number globally, by the way. So if you do any international moves or more long haul moves, you put in someone's phone number, their name, a little message. I might say, like, you know, hi customer, this is James, and then I start recording the meeting. I hit the send button, and what's going to happen is I'm going to get a text on my phone, which I just got right here on my phone, and it doesn't matter if it's an Android or an iPhone, we don't care. And what you're going to notice here is that I'm a mover in this case. So you'll see on my screen, there's my mover. I'm waiting on my customer to come in, and so the customer clicks the text, a browser opens up here, and it'll say, hey, allow the camera. I don't have to download anything. I'm allowing the camera, and I'm going to show up. And so you can see me here, right? And I'm going to flip this camera. And so if we're on a move, right? Hey, I need all this moved. My TV, as a mover, I'm going to take a picture. Show me that TV there. That's the thing that I don't want to drop. You know, Jeff told me today those things break a lot, right? I want to get a couple pictures of that. Anything else? Oh, that bobblehead up there is, or there's a Joe Namath football right there. You see it right there? Joe Namath signed that thing. Don't lose that. Like, my dad gave me that. All right, check. Right, so it's all becoming real from what Jeff was saying. So we're done with that call. I can do the estimate, but this can also be sent to your crew. So as an example, I'm going to close that. The second way that folks are using this is this video Dropbox, this request a link. I can, again, send a text, and I can send it to one of my crew members. Hey guys, as part of documentation, let me text you, and let's go around and take that video and those pictures, so I have those documented, like I learned today on the webinar. And all of that gets sorted here. Here's the meeting I just had with myself, and you'll see all the pictures. Here they are showing up, right? If I need to come in and, oh, that Joe Namath ball is really important, I can show my guys, like, hey, when you go to, if you see that, we can't lose that. It's about $5 for Jeff to replace, but that customer has to have it. So there's that. And then also it has the video. So here's the whole video documentation, and I can see exactly what's going on. from what my movers and my sales guys are doing to what my customers doing. And I can give all of that to Jeff. I just copy the link, send it to him, send him these pictures. It's all time stamped and we're ready to rock. All right, and so that's a little bit about LiveSwitch. That's how folks are using it. I mean, Jeff, what do you think if you were to get this kind of documentation, how would this, change things for you?
It would definitely help out in claim settlement, being able to have photos of the items, being able to determine if there was damage there from a customer standpoint, like in the football, there's a box missing. They're claiming that they've got a, $300